switch this up real quick and get to the reason why y'all are here tonight. Let me put that up there. Whoa, where are we? Let's share my screen. Put this one there. All right. Pull that up. And let me mute this real quick. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's now get to the real reason y'all are here. We're talking about flying in the Bay Area, Class Bravo, big spooky airspace. I've heard from people in San Carlos who have reached out to learn about what it's like to fly to Truckee, and they said, flying in the mountains, that seems scary. I feel like there's some of us, probably myself included, who maybe have never flown in the actual Bay Area where it's big Class Bravo, and I think that's scary. So I thought this was a good topic that we would present tonight. So without further ado, let's get to your headliners. Back for a second month in a row, Steve Ingebretson, our tower manager, alongside twin brothers, Michael and Leigh Golden, everybody. Michael, let me give you that.
Yes, sir.
And clip that on.
Okay, and then we got Leigh, and is our microphone working?
Let me see. Check. Mike, how we sounding over there, Larry, on the sports broadcaster microphone? Good?
Larry, you got me loud and clear?
Test.
Wonderful. Thank you. You gave me the clicker. Thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here this evening. Between the three of us, we have well over a century of years flying in and out of Class Bravo airspace. I'm the youngest guy, and whole reason I picked up flying was because I lived here and I was young and commuting to the Bay Area for work back in the 1990s, and I wanted to fly back and forth, always wanted to fly, but it's not so easy going in there, and it's gotten tougher over the years, as we'll tell you about. Between the three of us, we have flown into every single Class Bravo airspace in this country. I myself have flown into, and I'm certified for DC CIFRA, O'Hare, Los Angeles, Phoenix, Vegas, of course San Francisco all the time, and many others. Leigh and Steve also have gone into pretty much every one. The San Francisco Class Bravo airspace is definitely unique amongst them all that I've been into. We do it regularly. We have a lot of experience with it, but it's not a simple process that you just jump in the plane and go. There's quite a bit of planning and consideration. So we're going to talk to you about that. At about 2/3 the way through, we're going to break for questions. So if you have questions, if you could write them down. And then at the end, we'll do more questions. And of course, Bravo stands for what? Busy. Busy airspace, right? That's what Bravo stands for. So we're going to discuss both VFR and IFR flight tonight, procedures, weather conditions that you could expect, visual reporting, geographic considerations, with focus on Oakland, Hayward, San Jose, Palo Alto, San Carlos, Half Moon Bay, and San Francisco. We're going to talk a little bit about Livermore. Livermore and Concord are outside the Bravo airspace, and so is Reed Hillview. So notable mention to Reed Hillview. It's a busy area, but it's really outside Bravo. So we left that one off the list. Concord and Livermore, they're more traditional fly in, talk to the tower, fly out. Not a big deal. So when we talk about flying into and out of the San Francisco Bravo airspace and we're leaving this area. Always proceed out via Blue Canyon or Cigna intersection. Always. My instructor who taught me decades ago used to hammer this into my head and say, do not go out in any other way except out via Blue Canyon. For those of you who are online at home, look at your sectional or terminal chart as we're discussing this. You'll see where Blue Canyon is. We have a graphic for it. If you went direct, for argument's sake, from this airport, it would be an additional 7 to 8 nautical miles to go out via Blue Canyon. That's nothing. Your life is worth more than the couple of minutes extra time going out via Blue Canyon. If you read through your aeronautical information manual, it'll tell you that your clearance over terrain for VFR flight is 150% of the terrain you're clearing. So for example, Donner Summit, 7,000 feet, 10,500 should be your minimum obstruction clearance there. We don't all do that, but again, there's a reason we're flying out that way. That's one of the reasons. Another reason is Blue Canyon AWOS. You want to know what the weather is going into that area or coming back here, you can dial up the AWOS and listen to the weather right at Blue Canyon. It'll give you an idea of what the weather is going to be coming over the ridgeline this way. So once you've crossed Blue Canyon, you can think about joining Victor 392 and going direct to your destination. We'll look at that later on a graphic. For night flight, the Blue Canyon wind indicator is lit. Boreal is lit up. Even during the summer months, Boreal has quite a bit of lighting up there. There is a beacon at Blue Canyon, a rotating beacon, but it's out of service indefinitely. Decades ago, before we had GPS, we would click it on our mics and the beacon would light up and we'd go right to the beacon. Flying this routing, as Steve will talk about later, provides radar and communications coverage that you're not going to necessarily get flying in a different direction. So as you transition over Sacramento, there's 3 airports en route that you're going to fly pretty much right over. Either your right or left wing will be over these airports. There's Mather, Sacramento, and McClellan. They're excellent locations to change tanks or land if needed. Now there is cross traffic possible in and out of Capital. That's international. You got to use caution for wake turbulence. I've encountered this quite a few times when I'm flying outbound into the Bay Area. And the airliners into Capital often use Victor 392, which you're coming down. So there's a conflict there at times, and we get altitude restricted. Once you've gotten onto the southwest side of the valley, it's possible they're going to transition you to Travis approach control for a brief period of time. And this will be over the Sacramento Delta. So this is the routing right here. And this is Truckee. That's Blue Canyon. And Cigna intersection is right about there. And for those of you on Zoom, we're using a little laser pointer on our display. And then this parallels, close to parallels, Victor 392 coming down from Blue Canyon. And as you can see here, you got McClellan there, you got Mather, you got Sacramento Executive, Auburn is right over here, you got Grass Valley over here, you got Georgetown there, and there's just a plethora of airports here in the Delta, and you're coming on down. Before you know it, you're passing Concord off your right wing, Livermore off your left wing, and you're going to cross right over Hayward. If you're going into Hayward, you'd go right into Hayward. This is the safest routing coming out of this area or going back into this area. So what's your destination? We got all these airports to choose from. They're all unique. Oakland, there's 2 airports. For those of you who haven't flown in there, Leigh, could you grab your microphone and talk about that for a second?
1, 2, test. My name's Leigh. I just want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the airport for hosting. I've been flying in and out of here for over 40 years, and I've never had any problems here. Little turbulence once in a while, but hey, that's what maneuvering speed's for, right? Question to everybody, how many folks here have actually flown into San Carlos? Just raise your hands. So, yeah, most of you
number.
guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Things have changed a lot. I've got the new T chart here, the back, and I'll just be honest with you. If you don't have this book, get it. It's off of Amazon. It's only $10. It's a condensation of a lot of this book. This is like trying to read a lawyer book. It's the information's in here, but it's very difficult and lengthy to read it. These folks have taken the pertinent information, the new stuff that's come out, in this year, and they've condensed it, and they make it very readable. Even somebody like me can understand it. Whereas the other book, you got to have it for reference, but it can be pretty daunting. So that's an excellent book. You can get it on Amazon. Like I said, it's like $10.
Lee's question from Zoom. What was the title of the book?
It's FARAIM 2026, and it's written by and condensed by Aviation Compliance Alliance. And if you just go into the Amazon thing and just put in AIM, it'll come up, and they'll get it to you quick. It's an excellent source of info. And I've been studying to do my biannual. I haven't done it yet, but I haven't done one realistically since 1980 plus, because I got into professional flying, and every year I'd go to flight safety. Fly the MU-2s. We had these at San Carlos. It's a fantastic airplane, and we used them for aeromedical. Thank you, Steve. We used them for aeromedical, and that airplane, it was designed to operate off a 2,000-foot dirt strip, climb up into the mid-20s, and it'll cruise all day, the Marquis at 330 knots all day long. It's a fantastic airplane. And you talk about a build quality, the Mitsubishi, it's unbelievable the way they build it. Anyway, so we operated safely out of San Carlos for years with these, and then we moved our operation over to Hayward because we got Lear 24s and 25s. And the only thing I can say about the Lear, it's a fantastic airplane, but when you push the power levers up, you better hold on tight. Because on a cold day, it'll climb 10,000 feet a minute. It's absolutely incredible. And for aeromedical, you couldn't beat it. But anyway, going into Oakland is no big deal. The advice I would give any and all going out of here, like Michael said, you're going off a 2.8 or 2.9 now. Tower will guide you. They're the best here, one of the best towers I've ever worked with. Just go out over Stampede and Boca and do a nice lazy climbing right turn. Go up to your oxygen limit, 12.5, and follow, and as I called it and coined it, follow runway 80, okay? If you ever have an issue and you land out there by runway 80, they will find you, and they'll find you quick. These engines, and I'm talking pretty much single engine piston engines, are superbly reliable. I worked at San Carlos for years, and I probably rebuilt 500 engines, everything from a 150 to a 421, and flight tested them. I got thousands of hours doing it. Never had any problems. These engines are very, very reliable, but they're not perfect, okay? If you're going over runway 80 up at 12.5, 11.5 coming back and something happens, you're in a really good position. Fly the airplane, either land it on the highway or right next to it. There's a lot of ways out. These things are, exceedingly reliable, but it is a machine. Single engine piston. Once you graduate into multi-engine turbine airplanes, turboprops and or turbojets, then your issue of going direct takes on a whole new meaning. Because typically, the last 14 years for me, I flew a King Air F90 out of here. Standard day with one engine, it would hold nearly 20,000 feet. So you got plenty of options to go somewhere safe. Same with the MU2 and of course the Learjet. Well, you're halfway into outer space with that thing, but we won't go there. But the reliability is excellent as you move into these more advanced machines. But with a single engine piston, I'm going to back up to that. Follow the highway. There's no reason why you wouldn't. And I enjoy a lot of skiing over at Palisades, and I've seen a lot of airplanes, single engine pistons going direct to VOR, and they're heading out over Never Never Land, and that's just not a good idea. I wouldn't do it. But enough of that. I'm glad to see a lot of you good people have been into San Carlos. It's not a big deal. You go out of here, the tower will get you going. Talk to the center as soon as they hand you off. Tell them who you are, where you're going, and what you want to do, and they will open the Red Sea as they part the Red Sea to help you out. But talk to them professionally. That's important. If you get this book, and I highly recommend it, there's a whole chapter about phraseology, talking on the radio. It's not a big deal, but ATC, they expect certain protocols when you're talking to them. And it's very important. If you start rambling and BSing with them, they don't like it. So enough of that. You guys and gals, you know the drill, what I'm talking about. I'm just reiterating. And I've never had any problem. Most of the flying I did in and out of the Bay Area is under IFR. And that's, for me, it was a lot easier than going to VFR because, you know, how many have instrument ratings? Yeah, they tell
Good
you
number.
what to do.
Yep. So back to flying into Oakland, we got two airports there for those of you unfamiliar. There's Northfield and Southfield. Southfield is the airline airport, bigger runway. Northfield is general aviation. There used to be two towers physically there. There are still two tower frequencies. Oakland is closer to San Francisco than any other airport around. So if you got to go to San Francisco, sometimes it makes sense, go to Oakland, drive over the Bay Bridge. You'll hear things like expect the Coliseum transition or report the Coliseum. The Coliseum is a large, empty sports complex, old baseball field, old sports arena near the airport itself.
It's all on this.
Yeah, it's all on your chart. It's on your terminal chart. There are landing fees at Oakland. They're about $78 for a piston single. And this is a new thing, not a real popular thing, obviously. When you go into Hayward, that's fairly standard arrivals, but you got to use caution for the Oakland Charlie Airspace and their arrivals because you're crossing within 1,000, maybe more like 2,000 feet of aircraft going into Oakland. And they're on a direct path right overhead. If you're going into San Carlos, you cross east of Hayward preferably, you cross the shoreline at or below 2,000 feet, and you're going to be asked to report the toll plaza or Coyote Hills. Coyote Hills is an easier approach because the ceilings for the Bravo are higher. So this picture here is a beam in the numbers at Hayward. This is what Hayward looks like. Again, if you're going into Hayward, that would be a right base going into Hayward, or you're going into San Carlos, and the next thing you see is the toll plaza. And Steve's working up in the tower. He's going to tell you, report the toll plaza. Getting over to the peninsula, there's a number of different transitions here. One is possibly Oakland. The challenge to this is you got to go north tower to south tower. You're talking to two different tower frequencies. Then they're going to ask you to report mid-span on the bridge. This is kind of important. Mid-span is not mid-span on the high-rise. Your 28 left traffic for San Francisco is coming right over the high-rise of the bridge. When they say mid-span, they're really talking middle of the bridge. Then they're going to, you may be asked, or Steve may ask you if he was still working there, that's right, to report KNBR. Now, I've been asked this a number of times. If you're not familiar with it, it's very hard to find. It is a radio transmission tower sitting out on the bay. They want you to proceed to KNBR to enter the downwind for the airport, be it 12 or 30. Then you're going to be asked to report the cement plant off your right wing. You got to use caution in this area. Steve will tell you a little bit more about this, but there's heavy traffic inbound to San Francisco with a high probability of wake turbulence, and you're crossing underneath that inbound traffic for 28 left. There's a newer practice that I've encountered in the past 18 months or so by NorCal, and they're protecting the Oakland Class Charlie as if it is Class Bravo airspace. They will tell you remain clear of Class Charlie as you're coming inbound. And they'll oftentimes vector you out to the east to stay away from the Oakland arrivals. When you're going into San Carlos, for those of you who are not familiar, you follow the waterways and sloughs inbound. Again, for those not familiar, this and Palo Alto are both very short fields. They're about 2,500 feet. That's it. And if you're not real comfortable with that, I would recommend going to Livermore, practicing landing on 25 left, which is 2,500 feet. You're landing on the same size runway at sea level. Now it is sea level, so you don't need as much asphalt, but it's still a short runway no matter how you look at it. Once you get over to the Sky Kitchen, once you get over to San Carlos, the two real, attractions there, Sky Kitchen restaurant, which has been there forever, like you said, yeah, forever. I mean, I was a child going to the Sky Kitchen back in the early 70s. Hiller Museum is over there. The airport was actually built as a helicopter facility during World War II, and Hiller Aviation operated out of there. That's how San Carlos came to be. The Hiller Museum is on the south side of the airport. So this here, for those unfamiliar, this structure here is the cement plant. You want to keep that structure off your right wing. And that right over here is the slough coming off of the runway. If you're departing, you'd see that off your left wing. Inbound, it's off your right wing. So here we have the terminal chart. For those of you flying into San Francisco, Bravo, if you're not on an IFR, I would highly recommend get one of these charts. It's worth having in the aircraft, okay? We'll talk more about this. We'll come back to this in a little bit. So if you're going into Half Moon Bay, you want to use San Carlos Tower for transition. Go underneath the Bravo, and again, you're talking to NorCal anyways. Transition over San Carlos. They do this every day, all day. You remain southeast of the highway, Highway 92. Anything on the other side of 92 is Surface Class Bravo airspace. Half Moon Bay arrivals, they don't want you flying over the water at all. It's a marine sanctuary, and we'll show you that in a picture. Now, it is possible you can request an overflight of SFO to Half Moon Bay from the northeast. I'm going to go back to this, and this, you could go from Oakland, and it is possible they'll take you over right here and right over to Half Moon Bay. But generally what you're going to be asked to do is come over here on the VFR airway, or flyway, go right over San Carlos and through their airspace, and then over to Half Moon Bay. So there's parking on the southeast side of Half Moon Bay Airport. For those of you who haven't been there, who in this room has been to Half Moon Bay? So a few people.
Yeah.
Okay. If you park on the southeast side, you don't see this when you land. There's a gate. You can walk into town, get to the restaurants. There is a restaurant on the airport. It doubles as the terminal building. It's called the Pilot Light Cafe. They actually have a good menu, and it's your really only other way on and off the airport. The airport was a former military airport, has a huge runway, 5,000 by 150 feet. Here's the challenge for those of us flying IFR. If you're in Half Moon Bay and you have overcast skies and you need an instrument departure, you can file using whatever means you feel necessary, but in order to get out, you have to dial this phone number, this 916 area code number, to pick up your clearance. There's no other way to do it. There is a frequency, 135.1 for NorCal. There's no radio coverage on the ground. And Steve can tell you he just had to recently do this in a PC-12. So this is one of the many little secrets about flying into these places that no one will ever tell you unless they've been there. So this is Half Moon Bay Airport. We're departing, and I want to give a shout out to my photographer and close confidant and partner, Sandy. She did the photograph on this one. She did a few of the photographs you're going to see. So you can see the runway behind us. And when I said don't fly over the water, what they want you to do is they ask that your pattern be here over land. So right traffic here or left traffic here for 1-2. They ask that you don't fly over the water. As you're departing Half Moon Bay, let's say you're using the VFR flyway outbound. This is the picture you're going to see. Talk about San Jose for just a second. It's a busy Class C airport. You can expect to report embassy suites or the suites when you're going into San Jose. There's a hotel on the east side, which is really the north side of the airfield. And again, it is on your chart, but the tower is going to ask you to report the suites.
Yep, right here.
Yep. You'll land 30 left, and San Jose, just like Oakland has landing fees, San Jose has a little weird deal going on. They insist that you go to the FBOs, one of the two. There is no other getting off the airport. I have a friend who has a hangar there. I'll reference him later with his contact info if anyone's interested. Even when I park there at his hangar, they come up to me and ask me to move to the FBOs. It's just their policy. Signature weekends, which is Signature Flight Support, they discount their avgas on weekends. If you're going into San Jose on a weekend, go to Signature. They take a lot of money off. I'm talking $1 or $2 per gallon off the fuel on weekends only. Palo Alto, very short field, busy airport. Steve will tell you a little more about this, but they land both left and right traffic here, which to 30, which makes this very confusing and challenging. There are berms at the end of the runways. There's a good displaced threshold, but you got to use caution. It's a steep approach to 1-3. If you're arriving from the northeast, cross Coyote Hills to the Dumbarton Bridge, and this is a much easier approach than getting into San Carlos. My experience has been, and I don't know if this has been rectified, but for many, 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 many years, even recently, the VASI 431 is just unreliable. You're coming down on a slope, you're on slope, off slope, you're too high, too low, just fly in. My experience is it has been unreliable. They've no-tammed it unreliable many times and that's only for runway 31. If anyone else has any different experience, I'd love to hear it. So San Francisco, this is kind of an interesting topic. can you land your aircraft at San Francisco? Can I see a show of hands from anyone in the room who has landed their piston single aircraft in San Francisco? Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay. Traffic permitting, it's possible. You contact the tower at San Francisco and request the option. You better have the ATIS before you contact the tower. The communications are fast and concise. And the best way to do this, if you're really interested, is transition from San Carlos with ATIS ready. And you tell San Carlos Tower, you want a tower en route clearance San Francisco. And they'll give you a code, and you go. You request 28 left, you'll probably be directed to 28 right. As of this month, and this has changed everything down there, parallel approaches onto 28 left and right are now prohibited. The FAA is restricting traffic into San Francisco, 34 arrivals per hour. There's a steep fee now to land there. It's over $300. So you got to really want to land at San Francisco, but no one can tell you not to do it. You must be full stop unless the tower advises otherwise. I have a good friend who has a North American P-51. He goes in periodically. This is a Mooney approaching 28 left for landing. We asked the tower for the option. 28 left, tower gave us the option. They asked what our intent was, and I said, we're going to take right traffic for 28 right. Guy was silent for a minute, and then he says, okay, you're approved. Right traffic, 28 right. We went over to 28 right and departed. This was our picture departing 28 right in San Francisco. So you can do this. It's just, do you really want to aggravate yourself? If you really want to land San Francisco, you can do it. Now, this is really important. Leigh talked about this a little bit. When you're outbound from this area, VFR flights, the use of flight following is imperative. Contact Oakland Center over Donner Summit. If your flight originates in Reno, Stead, or Carson, contact NorCal and start the communications right there. Let them know where you're going. It's only going to help you. Oakland will hand you off to NorCal. As I mentioned earlier, there is possible transition to Travis Air Force Base and then back to NorCal. For those watching online, your inner Bay Area frequency for NorCal is 2535. You want to take note of that. Around San Jose, it's 21.3. Now, when we prepared the presentation, this was before the FAA locked down San Francisco. So we're going to tell you a little bit about that. With the restrictions on arrivals into San Francisco now at 34 an hour, San Francisco is temporarily halting what's known as Bravo Transition, which is the southeast side of the airport. But you can fly a bay tour to see the sights of San Francisco Bay. Flights are clockwise around the bay, weather and traffic permitting. You have to use flight following and VFR transition routing. Tower transitions are required, and again, I'd recommend picking up the clearance out of San Carlos or Palo Alto, but at this time, San Francisco isn't permitting that. So there are other ways around that. This is, again, one of our flights coming out of Half Moon Bay, and instead of getting the bay tour, we went up the coastline. That is another way to do this, and I'm going to cycle back here to this chart, our terminal chart. And what you can do is you can use the VFR flyway out of Half Moon Bay, go up the coastline, remain clear of the Bravo airspace,
Go on the back.
cross over the Golden Gate Bridge, and come right back around on the flyway through Oakland's airspace, and then back southbound into one of your other airports, whichever you choose, if you want to, or depart the area. Yeah, that's a good point. There's one area here, and this is what I call a squeeze. There's one area right near San Francisco. See, it's 2100 here, and there's a little area right where my pointer is, where, yeah, as Lee's saying, it's 1600 feet right here, okay? If you go offshore a little further, you're into 2100, but I'd rather be closer to the shoreline than further, just in case. So, I'm going to hand this off to Steve. He's going to talk to you about Bay Tour and what to expect.
Here it is. This. Oh,
I don't
thanks.
know if it works, but we'll try it.
It does. It's working fine. Well, just to let you know, I did what many of you known me from here. I've been here for 8 years, and I was at San Carlos for 3.5 before that. So I had a lot of fun there. It was a lot of traffic, very tight, and things have changed a little bit, but the airspace is basically the same. We always did what we could to try and accommodate everyone when they wanted to do the tours and that. And yes, it got busy. San Francisco, they were I wanted to say Bay Approach, but NorCal would always call and say, how's the weather looking? Because they wanted to see if they could do their side-bys, but now they've restricted it, so that makes a big difference. So the biggest thing is just you want to say Bay Tours, you want to do it, just like Michael did a great job in talking about it. It's been a long time since I've been over there, how the trend is going with things. Just ask, are they doing tours? If so, which way? They'll tell you. You know, you can do it, and they'll help you out. It's always been that way. There's been times when I used to put in, I could put into the stars, and they wanted a tour, and they'd come back and go, no, we're not doing it. Could be weather, could be something I didn't know about, so it was okay. So just that's the main thing, is just be, open to possibilities. So it's all about the communication, is all it is right now. They were talking a little bit about Oakland's Class Charlie restricting people in these days. I don't know why. All I can think of is because of the helicopter accident that happened out in D.C. with the airline there, Dulles. They have restricted a lot of helicopter separation too in the Class Charlie and the Class Bravo. So I have a feeling it has something to do with that. So that's why they're cutting back on a lot of that. They used to be able to do a visual separation with the helicopters, and they're saying nope, not anymore. They can't do it. We can do it here, but it's a matter of time. They're going to separate it here too, but another subject, another time. We'll see how it happens when it happens. Knowing the landmarks helps a lot. If you don't know, please say something. That's huge. Even here, until the time, and I'm always asking questions. Are you familiar with this? Because I want to know. If you don't know, because people will say, oh yeah, and then they'll take off. Where are you going? I make my plans because of what you tell me you're going to do. And that's fine. I'm trying to help, So it's the same thing with these guys, It's very tight, and a lot of it's because of noise as well as safety. So the nicer they are to the neighborhood, the longer they're going to stay there. If they're not, they'll do what they can to shut it down. As you know, I think Reed Hill will still be slated to be shut down, and I don't know what's going to happen to San Jose. That's going to get crazy, and then there's going to be others. All those airplanes are going to move, or people are just going to sell them. So it's going to get interesting. San Jose, I think, is going to get crazy. So be prepared for that. Let's see what else we got here. Questions first. I do better with that sometimes. Anybody questions? Yes.
Before it was restricted down to 34 coming in an hour, how many were coming in an hour?
That depends on weather.
It was over 60.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because if it was really nice, they would sit there and they could point out and do visuals in and out. I mean, Larry was. You didn't work in San Francisco, but you were familiar with it, weren't you, when you were at NorCal? Yeah. So he had a bit better idea of exact numbers, but it was a lot, And then of course it depends on whether there's heavies or not. That's another one too. And Michael talked about the heavy aircraft going in and out of there. I'd suggest you go a little wide, because I'd watched some super heavies go over the top and people are going underneath, and fortunately nothing ever happened, but I know I would have been in a pucker factor of doing that. So, I was like, whoa, but they did it. And some people just said, we're going to do a 360. I said, that's a good idea. So just things like that. Just if you're not comfortable with something, talk. Yes, sir.
These instructions are all about sort of heading from the peninsula and sort of going north and hitting the Golden Gate Bridge and stuff.
Mm.
What if you wanted to go fly over the Apple spaceship campus down in Cupertino near San Jose, or fly midfield over San Jose? Is that just something you would ask them in terms of the base?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would talk to them. You're going to probably get around. I'm saying, Mike, can you put the
Yeah.
map up there? Because I'm trying to figure out who to
Absolutely.
talk to. Most likely you would talk to NorCal, obviously, and they'll switch you. You might be running into Moffitt's Airspace.
Yeah, you're still
Yeah,
you're
so
still in
down
the
there.
Bravo
They
airspace
want to
here.
go down here,
So-
that area. So,
You're still, even
Yeah.
here, you're still in the Bravo airspace. You got to be
but
talking.
look at you're pretty high. I mean, look how high that Bravo airspace is there.
Yeah,
You know?
4,000 feet over
Yeah.
here. So, I mean, you think that's
So you
high.
got a lot of room. I mean, I used to fly traffic watch in the 172 and that years ago, back in the 80s, and constantly dialing different numbers all the time. Get different. Talk to Oakland, talk to San Francisco, I used to be able to fly over the top. They stopped that too, but yeah, you're constantly dialing. There's times I had 2 radios with 2 different towers going on, stuff like that. It's just when it was Bay. That's why I said Bay Approach, because I remember a lot of that.
Right,
But-
it was called Bay Approach
yeah.
back then.
So then, so yeah, there's nothing's impossible. Just talk. That's the best I can do, because sometimes you're going to say, oh yeah, we did this and this and this, and next time you go ask, depends on the controller, depends on the weather, depends on the winds, their traffic volume. They may say no, unable. Go around, do this, avoid. So there's no set rule of thumbs all the time. So that's the best I can tell you. All right. Yes, sir. Go ahead. I'll come back.
You're on flight, flight following.
Uh-huh.
Flight following.
Yeah.
You're transitioning different airspaces. They are telling you to fly a particular heading.
Mm-hmm.
Succinctly, when you're talking to a very busy controller, how do you get clear communication and state that you're cleared through that Charlie or that Delta that they're having to fly through? Instead of us having to constantly go back and forth between their tower to clear us. Because my understanding is they might send you down that pathway, but you can easily get dinged by the other
Right.
if you're not.
I mean, did they give you, you're cleared into the class Bravo? Did they give you, you're cleared into the Charlie? That's the thing you're going to listen to. If they did tell you that, then, you're golden. But I would still be listening and asking questions, because they're handling a lot of stuff. And I'll be honest with you, they will forget sometimes. And I've done it too, just want to verify we're still doing it,
They gotta pick up the phone, they gotta clear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're coordinating a lot.
Your question is an excellent.
Yeah.
I have an excellent response for.
Yeah, go ahead.
This was an experience that happened to me. Again, one of my No. This is an excellent question.
Right.
One of my hundreds of flights in here, and this is why we talked about. It could have been thousands of flights for all I know at this juncture. But this is why we talked about where are you transitioning from and to? Who's going to handle you next? Okay, so the sector that's out over Mount Diablo, right here, you're now with NorCal when you're in this area. Okay, this is the Mode C ring right here, magenta line on the San Francisco terminal chart. So the frequency out here today is 120.9er. Okay, now these frequencies do change. However, your inner frequency, once you cross, I'll call it 680, which is right here. Once you cross around 680, maybe even a little further southwest, the frequency is 125.35. It was that way with Bay Approach. I mean, I don't ever remember that frequency being different going back 30 to 35 years. So I'm coming in from this area on the routing that we talked about, and I asked for clearance through Bravo Airspace, which I would recommend everybody do if you're VFR. Ask. Worst thing that happens is they tell you you're not cleared through the Bravo Airspace. Then you have to do step downs to get below the 7,000, the 5,000, the 4,000. You got to get below these
2,000,
airspaces.
1,500,
Okay?
yeah.
So I'm cleared with NorCal 120.9er through the Bravo airspace. I asked for a reason to go through that airspace. Had to do with weather. We'll talk about weather considerations just a little later on. Next controller is 12535. He's busy. I finally get on with him, not the way I wanted to. He started raising his voice, and that was, I'm being polite saying that I busted Class Bravo airspace because the guy before didn't tell him that I was cleared through Bravo. Okay, now, does that happen, as Steve said? Absolutely. His conduct was not professional, I actually was the only time in my life I've ever reported a controller to Oakland Center in Fremont. I called up, and I told the woman, I said, look, not causing a problem here. You need to pull the recordings and listen to this. I got a call back with an apology later that day. So they're supposed to hand you off from one sector to another. And the next sector is supposed to know what you're doing based on what the prior sector gave you. But as Steve said,
It can happen, and
It
Larry
can
knows
happen.
too. You'd be on a position, you could have an assist, somebody next to you helping you out, and they could have taken a handoff or something like that and not told you what's going on. Then the controller gets this call, and like, what is going on? He or she could go off on it. So it's just keep your cool and just say, do you need me to do a 180, whatever, whatever you need to do, and just let them know I was cleared, and just be nice about it. I've had it, believe me, I've had it SoCal. I've had to call a couple of times. So, when I was flying in and out of Palm Springs and stuff, now that they own it, the service is not good. I'll admit, it's horrible. When it was Palm Springs Approach, it was the best. It was
yeah,
awesome.
the short answer to your question is the prior controller should give your instructions to the next controller.
But they don't always get it. So just be a little patient with them, because they may go, hold on, and they look and go, and somebody tells them, oh, I took the handoff, and he's going, and that can change things.
Once you're with a tower controller, like if you do this transition, the Oakland transition, from that point, you're not going back to NorCal unless they tell you to. And that would be, I can't even think of that occurring.
Yeah.
You're going to go from Oakland North to Oakland South, and then Oakland South is going to hand you off to San Carlos or Palo Alto. So
Yeah.
you're not going back to NorCal.
There wouldn't be any reason, no.
Right.
Just
So
more
they
confusion.
should know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So Steve, I always wondered this about controllers, and you gotta be honest with me, this helps. So in the interest of efficiency in a high density area, oftentimes the controller will say, hey, traffic level clock, 3 months.
Right.
Then
Oh.
the response is insight.
You want me to?
Okay.
You say, okay, maintain visual separation. I say, okay, maintain visual separation. Okay.
Right.
So what I like to do is when you point out traffic, 11 o'clock, 3 miles, when traffic inside, I'm able to maintain visual separation. It cuts out 2 transmissions. Do controllers like that, or is it not proper because the controller has to initiate that request?
I like it, personally, for that reason.
Yeah.
But if it gets to be if it clarifies things, to me, that's more safety. So it's a great way. Just like when people say, hey, I'm ready for departure on runway 29, I'm holding short of 29, I don't have to sit there and say, hold short of 29, blah, 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 Right, so I can say, and just little things.
Controller thing where a controller has to ask, because a lot of times I'll get the response of, I can't remember the response, but it's something like, Roger, are you able, and they asked me like again. And I wasn't sure it was a controller protocol where a controller has to initialize the maintain visual separation, or I can.
I'm trying to think of the situation you'd be in, but the point would be, it could make a difference of whether he says turn right or hold an altitude, because a lot of times we'll do it. If you can't see, somebody will say stay at or above. We're real restricted in how much we can do here, because we are a VFR, but we kind of do a Class Charlie service. We give a lot of traffic in that, but we could say remain at or above. I suggest you turn right towards, things like that we can't give headings. We can't say maintain 10,000. We can't do that, 10,000. But we can do, remain at or above 10,000 until you get the traffic. Once you have Truckee, resume your own altitude separation, stuff like that. That's the thing. They're trying to get that so they can keep you going. Especially if you're descending or climbing, if you don't see traffic, I'd be wanting to stop you just for safety factor. So I'm hoping that kind of answers what you're saying. But it's all.
I was just wondering if there was an ATC protocol where you had to initialize the request for visual separation. I guess it's not.
There could be how close the targets are too, where it's, for us, it's not with what we have here, but for others where they have stars and things like that they work with, they have certain criteria they can do with their separation of their targets and stuff. So, and I don't know all the rules in that, so, go ahead.
Okay.
All right.
Go back to kind of covered the Bay tour. And for those who would like a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, David is going to be putting it up on the web. So all of this detailed information is going to be available to you.
Just remember that if he does that, though, that's what he's saying. This is what it normally is, but it can change.
It can
That's the point I'm
change.
trying to say.
So that's the thing. So again, you want to do a bay tour, you want to see the sights, you want to see downtown
beautiful.
San Francisco. It's beautiful. You can do it. There's no reason you can't do it. So let's talk for a minute about weather considerations, all right? Because these are things, Steve and I are going to go back and forth a little here, but winter versus summer fog is different. There's winter fog here at the airport in Truckee. There's winter fog in the Sacramento Valley. There's summer fog, stratus, down in the Bay Area. The clearing in the Bay Area can often be from the southeast, like towards Coyote Hills. So maybe you want to come in over Coyote Hills. This is a consideration. Other times I've seen it where the peninsula is cleared and the entire San Francisco Bay is covered by a solid stratus layer. When that occurs, you got to ask NorCal for either clearance through Bravo or get down on top of that deck and go call the tower at San Carlos or Palo Alto, let them know you're coming, and see if you can cross over the top and then descend back in underneath the fog. Use the weather reports from multiple ATIS locations. It's really important. And for those of you who are on Zoom, and those of you in the audience, I want to reference something that even I just learned recently. There is an AWOS out of all places, the San Mateo Bridge. Anyone who's interested, the phone number is 650-827-8533. It's part of San Francisco's ILS system. And they tell you, when this isn't working, use San Carlos ATIS. That's part of the deal. So that's another weather reporting location. I don't know how many of you are comfortable with this, but during the winter, you may want to fly VFR, or you're going to want to fly on top of the fog in the Sacramento Valley. Now, the cloud cover over the Sierra Nevada range can build up quickly. I like to go on top, get above it, but sometimes you can't. The Blue Canyon AWOS is going to tell you what the ceiling is. The good thing is, and my instructor had taught me this, and he's generally right, as the terrain rises, as you're coming up from the southwest, returning to Truckee, as the terrain rises, so does the cloud deck. And the ceiling stays relatively constant. This isn't always the case, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb. Offshore winds and turbulence and north wind events are a big problem going into the Bay Area. You'll get some extreme turbulence over those East Bay Hills when we have offshore winds, just like we will out here over the Pacific Crest. Another thing I would recommend when you're coming back and it is cloudy, use your webcams if there's weather. Oftentimes I will find, it could be snowing over Donner Summit, I can climb up over the clouds and I look at the webcam here in Truckee, I look to the north, and it's clear out to the north. I come up over the weather, descend over Stampede, Boca in VFR conditions, maybe it's snowing a little here, and I land safely. Morning and afternoon operations, there are pros and cons. It's nicer during the summer to take off here in the mornings, but then you hit that stratus layer in the Bay Area. So you got to ask yourself, 6 of one, half dozen of another. Also the winds. Bay Area winds are different than here, but it's the same concept. In the afternoon, you're going to get a lot of wind in either location, especially during the summer.
Yep.
So any questions from the audience before we go into departure procedures? Anybody? Yes, sir.
Can you join the bay tour easily coming in from the north, like flying over Nevada?
Great question. Let me repeat that for the folks on Zoom. He wanted to know, can you join the Bay Tour coming in from the north,
Correct.
Nevada? And Steve will confirm, yes,
Yes,
you
can.
can.
Yeah.
Again, go back to your terminal chart, look at the VFR flyways. Sarah, you had a question?
That's just coordinate with NorCal, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Coordinate with NorCal.
Could you repeat the phone number for the AWOS, please?
Yes. San Mateo Bridge Marker. Again, this is part of San Francisco's ILS system, their weather reporting system for the ILS, and they require certain minimums. So they got the AWOS sitting on the bridge because we're all coming over the bridge. That they're going in, we're coming in from a different direction, but it's 650-827-8533. So for those on Zoom, Sarah asked us again what the number is for the AWOS on the bridge. David, do we have any questions from the folks out on Zoom?
Okay. One question that came in on Zoom a little earlier was we've talked about departing from Truckee and following I-80, but what about if you're departing from like Carson City, Minden area? Highway 50 isn't quite as suitable.
I've done that many a time. Sandy and I have done that. Every time we've done it, we feel it's safest to fly up through Reno, around Mount Rose, out over Blue Canyon, and on our way. Occasionally, we'll take a little shortcut. We'll come up over Spooner, go over the northeast corner of the lake, over to Truckee, say hi to Steve on frequency, and tell him what we need, what we might want. He gets it all coordinated, and we just keep right on going. But I would highly recommend that. Leigh, would you agree with that?
Just like when Michael's talking about the Stratus, so think about that. How high is that a Stratus? If you had to go through the clouds, you have a problem. Can you land? If it's all the way to the ground, I'd be thinking twice about. I'd find a different route. That you might want to not stay over the top of that the whole time if something happens.
Right.
So,
any other questions from Zoom? Okay. Yes, sir.
Back to the AWOS, how would you find that? Where is that published?
That is actually published with San Francisco's approach plates.
when you say it's on the plate.
Yeah, it is. But it's just like the Half Moon Bay number that I gave you guys we posted for clearance delivery outbound. It's really hard to find these things. Okay, so we're departing now San Francisco area, okay? And this is where things get even more exciting.
I'm going to grab this.
Go ahead, Steve. We've made some copies of this because I know people are going to want this. I'm going to discuss it for a brief
fine.
moment
It's all right.
and
I got
hand
one.
it over to Steve.
I got another one.
Okay. San Carlos has an instrument departure procedure.
I did.
It is not published in your JEPS manual. In fact, it is not published anywhere with the FAA. But we have it right here. When you're departing San Carlos and you're coming on back up here, you have to do this departure procedure. Steve will explain why it is not published. But there are IFR departures off of both San Carlos and Half Moon Bay that have certain uniquities. We talked about the Half Moon Bay one and the fact that the San Carlos procedure isn't published. For San Carlos, this is really important. Steve, you can ratify this one. Unlike other airports, you're doing a run-up at the end of the runway and you're ready to go. You got to contact the tower before you leave that run-up area. Steve, would you explain why?
The reason being this came in to implement when I was there 11 years ago is they would get a lot of people in the run-up and then they would just pull themselves up. And sometimes we had aircraft with flow times, things like that, with IFR behind them, and we had a different plan. So the clearance limit got to be to the 3-0 run-up area. So stop there, and ask and see, then you'll get your sequence to go in. And that's a lot of it because it's so small. It's not like you can taxi around. We have a little more room here. And there's times here I've asked, can you stay in the run-up area I got a guy I got a flow time for San Francisco. I got to get him out. And no problem. Everybody's been really good about it, so it's not a problem.
So all VFR departures should request a clearance and use flight following when you're leaving the Bay Area. If you're down in San Jose, get your clearance through clearance delivery. Hayward, Palo Alto, San Carlos, get your clearance from ground. Oakland, clearance delivery. And if you're like me and you went into San Francisco, clearance delivery. But request that clearance with ground or clearance delivery you're going to expect NorCal on 12535. Once airborne with departure, if you're VFR, words you want to use, request clearance through Bravo Airspace if able. They will give it to you if they can give it to you. They want you out of there as quickly as possible. Okay? You can expect vectors and altitude restrictions for separation. Out of San Carlos, they're going to tell you to do a Belmont Slough departure or a Oracle departure. Steve's going to go over that.
Yeah.
Off of runway 12 at San Carlos, this is another one that they don't really publish. When you depart 12, turn left 20 degrees on departure. It's better for you, and it's what they want you to do. Again, we went over the Half Moon Bay clearance delivery phone number. If you're IFR out of Half Moon Bay, you got to call that number or you're not going anywhere. Frequency for NorCal out of Half Moon Bay is 135.1. You want to head up the VFR flyway, get on frequency the minute you leave the airport. Steve, why don't you talk about the IFR departure procedure?
It's hard to understand, but this whole reason that this isn't published is because there is a VFR portion of it, and the FAA won't do it. So but we still have to read it, you know. And it's pretty simple, but it's a lot of words to put in there. You know, it's depart runway heading until passing the diamond-shaped waterway, then turn right to a heading of 120. So you're just basically going a downwind, you know, from runway 30. So, and then keep that turn within 2 miles, so that way you stay out of the Bravo, not getting too wide. You can see the airport and stuff, and then expect vectors to your assigned altitude, but then maintain VFR for now. That's where they don't like it. It used to be 1,200, now it's 1,100, until crossing the Oakland 165 degree radial. So again, this is a lot. And then then you climb and maintain usually 2,000, let's say in 2,100. I almost always had 2,000. And then expect high, you know, your assigned altitude, you know, 3,000, 5 minutes after departure, whatever you requested. So it's not hard to do once you understand it, but to say it, I used to say it very slowly, saying I did ask for readbacks, because if somebody doesn't do it properly, it can create a lot of problems. And, you know, we still had to get a release, even though it was VFR portion of it, we still had to get a release to get them airborne.
So we got a question in the back, but hold on 1 second. I want to add to this real quick. Hold on 1 second. I want to add to this real quick.
Sure.
So when we pulled this up, number one, as I said, we printed a number of these for anyone in the audience that would like one. They're not terribly hard to find, but they're not easy to find either online because they're not published. The San Francisco Bay Area, I guess it was Oakland Center manager, put out an edict back in December that you do not need to read back the entire departure procedure verbatim if you understand it and the controller doesn't ask you to read it back. If the controller asks you to read it back, Steve,
It's my technique.
You got to read it back.
Again, we're trying to reduce problems, you know. We talked about that before, verbiage. I'll take a little extra verbiage to reduce problems, because in the long run, it can be less verbiage.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Jack.
I've got a question.
Yes, Jack.
There's an obstacle departure procedure at San Carlos. What's the difference?
You mean as far as, well, it basically does take you out of the diamond-shaped waterway. It does take you over the diamond-shaped waterway, if that's you're asking, you know.
So let me repeat the question for the audience on Zoom. So Jack was asking, there is an obstacle departure procedure, which there is, out of San Carlos. What is the difference?
I'll be honest, at this point, I don't know.
I've seen the obstacle departure. I've never been given a clearance for that obstacle departure.
We've always assigned routes, and a lot of it's all about noise, you know, and of course it goes over the water a lot or a freeway a lot. Depends which one. We're going to have a map up in a minute for that, but I apologize. I'm not going to tell you something I don't know. So, but I never assigned it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it does exist.
Yeah.
I've never been given it.
Yeah.
Leigh, have you been given it?
I think
No.
part of it
Okay.
probably my assumption would be that because of the departures that they have, all the little, you know, called Belmont Slough Oracle departure and all that, the different ones they had, and they've changed a lot of the names since I was there. They already comply with a lot of that. It seemed that I would think, but I don't know. So.
Okay.
One thing I want to add on this, it says right on the bottom, this is unofficial guidance and strictly advisory. Not all waterways and obstructions are charted, not to scale. The last update was 7/15/12,
But that is what they're using.
but nothing's really changed on that.
Yeah.
It's been like that for decades.
Yeah.
So, okay, Steve, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Well, this is where we were just talking about all the different departures. They got the different names: the Woodside departure, Coyote Hills departure. Most common one is, Oracle, and they call it the Hillsdale now. Those were all, in fact, the Coyote Hills is about and Woodside. Yeah, those two were the same, but the other two were different. But it's basically the same thing. A lot has to do with, there's some of the, like Bay Meadows is not there anymore. And I mean, there's just all these things that are no longer there, so they had to change the names. So, but they're meant to help keep you out of the Class Bravo, give you a way to get out, help out with noise. I mean, you think this place has noise complaints, they got it there a lot. So, and fortunately, we don't get the phone calls to us. So, 1-2 departures, they're relatively simple, In fact, there's a lot of people that even VFR, I mean, they used to call me and say, can we depart with 1-2? If I didn't have traffic, sure. I didn't care. Just like I do here. Can I take 1-1? Yeah, that's fine. As long as there's I can accommodate you. I may not be able to, but most of the time I can. Same thing there, because it's simple. It gets you out of the Class Bravo real quick. Not a lot of noise problems. I'm pretty sure that the left turn heading to the left 20 degrees is for noise. I'm pretty sure of that because I just don't see anything else. I'd be cautioned for Palo Alto's got departures coming out of there, so they tend to go a little wide on their downwinds and stuff. So just keep an eye on things when you do that. But that's about it. Fortunately, the equipment we all have on our airplanes these days, there's a lot of great information, so that helps a lot. The arrivals, cement plant, KMBR, all these are very common. Coming overhead, over top, very restrictive coming in, like some Half Moon Bay, come over the top for the downwind or to transition and stuff like that. You got a real small window. I think it's like 300 feet to go through there. But, I'm just amazed how well the pilots fly it. They really do a good job. So, and it's all about trying to keep you clear of it and make it safe, So, and most time, if you're coming into land, you're slowing down, you're starting to set yourself up, already come over the top for the downwind. It's going to be right traffic 30, or you're going to come around for, runway 12. Either way, we try and put you over always just try and put you over the water for noise. That's what it was. So it was important. Straight in, Woodside VOR coming in, it's pretty common. And, it would just be straight in report. They'd want to report. I mean, if there's anything different that I'm saying that it was from, again, it's been 8 years. If there's something new, let me know. But it was pretty common then. Pattern work, 3-0 was there. We accept helicopters. Helicopters were 3-0 with right traffic. Helicopters did left traffic, but they stayed right over the freeway. But we still had to blend them in. So you were talking about Palo Alto doing left and right traffic. Same type of thing, would blend them in, stuff like that. It was a great challenge. I enjoyed it, but I'm a little crazy too, so, I'm not going to get into all these details. We're pushing a lot on time, but, the weekends, holidays, of course, they get crazy, and so just be patient. I've had people line up on both sides of the runway, as to do your run-ups and stuff, so, be very, very cautious about what they're saying, when to pull up where. That's all I can say. That was my biggest thing. People listen, I could do anything. So, there you go.
That's the slide you were looking for.
Yep, that's it. You can see the small green helicopter pattern. You're not going to get that, but if you're a fixed wing, but if you've got a helicopter, there you go. It was quite common to get them doing that pattern, but as you can see, they pretty much stayed over the freeway as much as possible for noise.
So if you look here, and folks at home on Zoom, they can see this San Francisco Class Bravo surface area.
Yeah.
That's changed a little bit over the years. It's come closer to Oracle, which used to be Marine World, right here. And you got to be real careful. This couldn't be more than 1.5 miles from the end of the runway or from the diamond-shaped waterway out to 92. So this is the surface Bravo. And unless you get clearance from San Francisco Tower, you're not going in there.
And as you can see, a lot of it's over water. It's about noise, you know.
Right.
And
And for
the
those
Belmont's slowing out.
for those who were interested, we referenced KNBR before because the tower is going to tell you proceed to KNBR. It's right out on that point. I didn't say you can see it easily. You can use your ADF and dial it in. Otherwise,
If you
know,
still have it.
Yeah, if you still have your aircraft equipped with it. So, a couple of other brief things here. We're going to wrap this up and go to questions. Leigh had mentioned to you how safe these aircraft are and why we choose the routing we do. Come on over here, Leigh. So Leigh and I were flying along one night, and for those of us who can or can't see this at home, this is a high pressure fuel line. And of course, they live life of the aircraft, right? Wrong. It burst in flight. We were on that routing. We made an airport. We landed safely. This here is one of Leigh's props. Go ahead. Crankshaft up a high 550. It's shattered.
It's off a Cessna 210, an M model. This is a really weird story. I'll make it brief. 3 weeks before this happened to the owner, I had a dream. I was flying this serial number on a test flight out of San Carlos over 280. Crankshaft broke. I glided down and landed. Fortunately, the peanut farm was right there. I hopped the fence, and I won't go any further with that. 3 weeks to the day, the owner was flying this out of Van Nuys with his family in the back. He was going over to Mammoth. And he just got over the mountains there into the valley there, right over Palmdale. Broke.
That's why we recommend flying out via Blue Canyon and Cigna intersection.
Leave yourself a way out.
Stack the deck
best as
in
you
your
can.
favor when you're flying down there. So, a couple of other things.
I just wanted to add something on that one thing.
Yep.
The 3-0.
We're-
This picture.
Hold on a second. We might. That one?
No,
That one.
this one. Let me have your laser beam here.
Yep.
I've flown in and out of here thousands of times. It's been a long time. The microphone. Testing 1, 2. I've landed here. I can't tell you how many times. They elected to put this building here. Okay, I don't know what it is. The wind in the summer is always 270, which is right over there. I got it.
Yeah, like this, buddy.
In the white room. Okay, so anyway, the wind is always coming out at 270 at 15, gusting to 30 in the summer. Any of you folks who've been there, you know that, right? It's always windy. Well, they put this building here, and I was coming in to land on 30, right on slope, and I got down to 100 feet, and that thing rolled probably 40 degrees because of the rotor. Whoops.
Here.
Now I did it.
Yeah, now you did
Can't
it all
take
right.
me anywhere.
That was a 40-degree.
Yeah, because of the rotor
Because of the rotor
coming off this
that
building right here. For those at home on Zoom, it's the building to the left of the numbers 30. It's an office building that was built there for reasons unknown.
Unknown.
And it's not new anymore. Back then it was relatively new. But as a summary here, if you've never been in here before, go with an instructor. If it's your first time, I'd recommend you use a CFI. The best CFI for Mooney training is Don Kay. He is in San Jose. He's based there. And his email is up here. Will Wobe, I have flown with. He's based out of Virginia. And he and I have flown out of Leesburg through the DC CIFRA a lot. We've flown across the country together. We've flown into the Bravo airspaces together. He's an excellent instructor, and he will come out here to fly with you. Sarah Kramen, who's sitting right here in the audience tonight, I have flown with her before down there. She's very talented. And if you could do what I did when I was learning how to fly decades ago, I went down, rented a plane down there, and flew for 3 days to learn the airspace. San Carlos Flight Center is very good. They're down there. You could rent an airplane or pick up an instructor there. So any questions any further from the audience? Any Zoom questions? We appreciate you folks immensely. Thank you.
That does it for tonight. These guys are going to stick around a little bit longer if you want to come ask them questions up here, see some of their handouts. We're going to be back here again May 13th. And next Wednesday is Earth Day, so go hug a tree. Good night. Not yet. Almost.